So I'm going to kind of re-intro that, okay? But basically we put this on so you guys understand all of the things you can do with the concessions. But one of the things that I really like to talk about, the reason we have it with partners, Matt's with Fairway, he's my number one, he's my go-to for lending, and Navy, I've got a partnership with them because I have my escrow officer that knows how I like things done. I can direct what I expect the day of closing, what I expect if there's not docs. I don't have to worry about it. It's on autopilot once it's with them. So if you guys don't have somebody you know is like a killer and they're very good at what they do, I'll get you my direct details, so that way when you open escrow, I can get you to talk with Lisa. But again, you're being able to piggyback off of that because I've built relationships over the years. So you're getting all the benefits without all the mistakes I've made over the years. But I believe it's crucial that your partners that you surround yourself with are as strong as you want to be perceived, right? As good as you want to be perceived, because your name is what's behind this. So we'll talk more about that, but I'd love to give you those contact details, put you in touch with them. Kathleen, she's used to this, she's on our team. But again, even still, always, understanding the knowledge. And what Chris touched on is that when you talk about concessions, I go back to, I've been in this a long time, back when we used to have to write our own clauses and write our own things, and I would have to define what the concessions could be used for. Now, we have our contracts now that you don't have to do that, but I had to sit down with legal counsel and the title company to make sure that we didn't miss anything. Because definitively, what we used to call closing costs, that is a definitive item. So what we're going to dive into today is in the market that we have never seen in the last many years, and even when we saw concessions, common to see 0.5%, 1%. Now we're talking 46%, and we're getting it. Like 3%, people don't scuff at it. I just wrote one. We went 50,000 under list, and we went 4%. And we're on our third counter, and we're going to make it happen at 30 grand under list with 4% concessions. Not in a million price point, in a 400,000 price point. So that's what I'm getting at. Like, if you guys don't realize the opportunities, and these are opportunities you need to be able to convey to your clients. Because not only have we just went over this morning, in last week, we had 2,626 price drops. The biggest week we had was October 2nd, it was 3684. I'm about sure that that's the exact number. Compare that to April. Do you know how many we had in April? 304. So there's some movement in pricing, okay? But on top of that, if I could get 3% or 4% or 5% or 6%, and I get with my lender, all of a sudden, my rates are amazing again. My closing costs are paid. There's programs where we can use that in many different ways. But you need to know there's so much more outside of the box that you can do. You need to be able to think that way. Because now this is when people go, rates are so high. No, they're not. They're average. Again, now 7's a little high, but I mean, talk to people who bought years ago. You get a seasoned buyer, they're like, rates aren't high. That's phenomenal. My first rate was 8.
Mine was 9.
See? And that all day long you're going to hear that. So don't let that fear create you to not make movements, because there's a lot of movement to be made. And during the holidays, now our second home market goes up during the holidays. So October, November, December, January, February, March, and then into April it starts to die. That's our second home. That's when people are here. But people that put their home on during the holidays, they need to sell. They want to sell. So price reductions and concessions are something we're seeing like never before. Matt and I work heavily at this because he's the master behind carve out, let's get this much and we're able to do this much more with it. So what I'm going to let Matt do is we're going to let Matt dive into some numbers, and then we're talk about ways that we can do some concessions. And again, because it's a little bit smaller of a class, we're going to get into some bonus content. Preston is like my team manager. He and I work very well together he is super I'm numbers driven as far as data and all that. This one takes it to way deeper. And so we're writing programs and writing offers, seller financing, and things that people aren't thinking of right now. So we're going to get you as much knowledge as we can, but feel free to ask questions along the way.
Cool. So we'll get into it. Matt Weber with Fairway Independent Mortgage. Been doing this for about 10 years. And although my wife would probably disagree with me on this market, I love this market. Income-wise, obviously, everything's down. but it's a market where you have to be smart. You have to know products, and you have to put extra effort in. And so it's not the flashy item market. Like, it's not like, hey, we have this product or this random thing, and you should use us for this reason. It's like, you have to know the insides and outs of how to negotiate this. So I'm glad that she put this class on, because every conversation we have is around concessions. Every single one of them. And it's tough to have the conversations with a potential buyer, because their first thing is rate. And my first rebuttal to that is, well, yeah, I mean, if you just went and offered on a property at list price and you took market rate, it's hard to get it to make sense. It might not make sense at all. But if we structure this correctly with concessions and working the price, you're going to get a deal, and we haven't had a deal in years. It's been the complete opposite. And so all of a sudden, the whole conversation switches to, let's find you a deal. Let's see what a deal looks like. And it can be overwhelming. But once you get into the numbers of it, it actually makes a ton of sense. And that's what we're going to break down. So I'm going to go through, let's see here.
One of the first things I want you guys to think about too, the average client, you can move that over. The average client, actually every client, unless they're cash, do you think they really buy on rate? What do they buy on? Payment. That's the thing.
Close. Yeah, so I just put some slides here so I could get, let's see here. So things to consider when allocating seller concessions is, what's the max allowed? That's a big thing, because I'll have this come up all the time. Like, yeah, I got like 6% of this. I'm like, great, you can use 3. So you want to go back on a contract and ask them to drop price after that. So max allowed. What are the regular closing costs? Because you want to just cover those first. And then, are there refundable items that we can use on our end to help with the payment? And that's what we'll get into on the actual Excel spreadsheet. And then Torie can help with this stuff, but things you can pay outside of the mortgage or add to basically the transaction. Because at some point, if you run out of room on concessions, you could still use it in the contract. You just have to get more clever with it and basically keep it out of the lender's way. And there's ways to do that. I could get into all of that.
Cut video.
It's really not that bad. So this is the max seller concessions, and it's going to be on this other graph, but really what I want to go through is work through the spreadsheet that I created for this. So I'm sure you guys have heard, and they're getting sick of hearing it, but temporary buy-downs and how they work. So
are you at all familiar with temporary buy-downs? And if you're not, it's okay, because it's important so you have an understanding. It's hard to tell somebody to do something if you don't have a basic understanding. The purpose of this, though, is not to become a lender. The purpose is to have enough knowledge to get them to your lender, and then they do the work for you.
I'm going to try re-plugging this in real quick.
Is it just not lined up?
No, it's just not pulling up the Excel spreadsheet.
There we go.
There we go. I'm good with the numbers. Maybe that's technology of it.
You guys want to grab some sandwiches? Okay. We got lunch. Come on. Look at all this lunch.
Okay, so what we're going to do here is we're going to take a $550,000 transaction, and we're going to run it at 5% down and 10% down, and we're going to do a temporary buy down. Now, the biggest things with a temporary buy down is it's different than a permanent buy down. We're going to compare it with a permanent buy down. What a permanent buy down is that's where you're buying points. You're paying the bank to have a lower interest rate for the life of the loan. Because with interest rates, you can pick whatever rate you want. So you can pick a really low interest rate, you can pick a really high interest rate. That low interest rate, the bank will give you that low interest rate, but at a cost, and that's points, and that goes to the bank. You don't get that back. They'll also give you credit if you take a higher interest rate. With a temporary buy down, it's completely different. It's basically a creative way for lenders to give funds to the buyer where they wouldn't normally be able to allocate them. It's held in an escrow account, and that's where it's totally different. It's like a savings account that's making payments on your behalf to make it seem like your rate is, in this case, it's the 2-1 buy down, where it's 2% lower the first year, 1% lower the second year. So it's not truly that that mortgage itself has a lower interest rate, it's that this account is making it feel that way through those payments. The other side to that is because it's an escrow account, that money is yours. While the mortgage is alive, it has to make those payments. You can't pull money from that outside of the payments that come out. But if you were to sell or refinance, that money gets refunded back to you if you haven't used it. And so I put that in the 2-1 buy down tab on here where you can actually see how much we go back. So we'll start with this. We'll do 5% down. Let's just use a rate of 6.99%. No points. That's going to give you a payment in there. And then we're going to compare this to, let me check what that was. A permanent buy down, which, let's price it up real quick. I'll call it a 6.125. So for 2 points, you get a 6.125, and you're saving money, but not like you would on the 2-1 buy down. This is really hard to do. It's far away, and it's really too small. 1 second. Okay, so what you'll see here off to the, on this side is your note rate. So this is the actual mortgage. So this is the 6.9% interest rate. This would be at year 3. This is what your actual mortgage payment would be. Now with the buy down, you're going to go off of year 1. All of a sudden you drop that to 33.56. So it's dropped significantly there. Can you guys read that? Is it too blurry? Looks good. And then year 2, we're going to go down to 36.84, and then year 3 on, you're at $4,000 a month. So that would be if you didn't pay points and you weren't getting seller concessions. And now we're going to compare that to if you bought it down permanently, you're at 37.29. So on the breakdown here, go up to the what's today's rate. Oh, I can't read that from over here. You can see the cost of it. So we're over at about 3.4% of the purchase price. So if you got 3% concessions, client comes in with 0.46 of their own funds. Permanent buy down, 3%. So it's off by 1/4 of a point. That all gets covered by the seller and gets funded into either this escrow account or towards that rate. And now if we look at this on the break even, you would be better off doing a 2-1 buy down for 2.9 years. So we're going to be looking at the difference in the savings, which is, where is that showing on here? At that point, at the 2.9 years, you would be overpaying by $297. So if you didn't refinance by year 3, that's the amount you'd be paying more than the regular note rate. Now, that all has to do with market, obviously, and I don't think this should ever be sold as buy now, refi later, you're guaranteed to refi in 6 months. I feel like that's kind of in the dialogue. This should be, if this payment works for you and you can survive with this payment, you have to look at the benefit of being able to refinance. You can refinance. It doesn't mean that opportunity is going to be there, but you can, and if you do, that's where you really win big. Because on this side, that money's going to the bank. That $10,000 just goes to the bank. There's no getting that back. But if you go break it down over here, we'll look at a refinance. If we were, so here's that amount that gets held in that account, $12,000, and then let's just say you refinance in 10 months. 10 months in here, you would have spent $6,700 or saved that much, and then you'd have $5,400 to go towards that refinance. That would cover all of your closing costs and about 1/2 point. So now you've covered from that, say, 3.5% the seller gave you, all the closing costs on the purchase, and they funded your refinance with about 1/2 point.
So you're saying that if we did the points for permanent, you can't refinance that quickly? Is that?
You can refinance this quickly, but that $10,000, it's gone.
Yeah.
Exactly. So that's the biggest thing, is that's gone. And so on this case, you get that $5,400 back, plus you would have saved more up front in that first year than you would have with that other rate.
So what a lender like Matt, when I get my clients, I want to bring this now to real estate, okay? Because you're going to now have to basically pitch this to your clients as to when you're talking about why is it a good time to buy, right? So to just kind of dumb that down for things, what I always say to my clients is, look, right now I can tell you, and I check with Matt before I quote it, like, hey, on a 2-1-A paper, what would I be at? So if I get, and let's just explain it the way we would. Let's say I get a permanent rate of 5.875. First year it's 3.875, second year 4.875, third year and on 5.875. Does that make sense? So when I say to my client, hey, right now on a 2-1 buy down, this is your rate, and it could save you potentially, and I get this data from him, but I just break down the basics. On this house, it would save you, first year, it's gonna save you about $700 a month in payment. So, why would a 2-1 buy down make sense? How big of a risk taker are you talking to? And that's where he'll dive in. But what I say to my client is, look, you've got a 2-1 buy down and you got a permanent buy down. If you're not comfortable with the rates, giving yourself 2 years to refinance, then go with a permanent. But with this risk, right, let's say the rate is 5.875 and the permanent buy down rate is 5.5, the savings may be enough for your client to go, I'll take that risk. But I bring down just enough basics as an agent to get them on the phone with the lender. Because then he's gonna dive into this stuff that would make our brain hurt, and he's gonna get the client to what's a best fit for the scenario for that client. This is also why when you have a client say, oh, I'm gonna use Rocket Mortgage, and I'm just using them because it's somebody I think of. You get into online lending, those people are not going to sit and take the time to really fit the program to your client. So when my clients say, why do you use that lender? I say, because as good as I am at what I do, they're as good in lending. They're going to customize this loan for you. Not just what sounds good on the surface, but what's the best fit for your long-term goals. So a 2-1 buy down, remember, that money sits there and they can refinance it if the rates get better. 6 months, rates are better, they can refinance it. A year, rates are better, they refinance it. At any point, if it's gonna be better than that 5.875, they can refinance it and they're good to go. Permanent is, once it's done, it is done. But when Matt's talking 3.5%, now, what am I gonna ask for? I'm not asking for 3.5. I'm gonna ask for 4 or 5. And then we'll talk about what we can do with that money. But the biggest thing, again, this is complicated unless you have just some cliff notes on how to pitch it. So when you're saying this kind of stuff, you need to be able to get some basics. And Matt and I do that well. It's like my whole team would text Matt, get the numbers for that client, and then we pitch just enough to get them on the phone with Matt.
Yeah, and that's a full communication thing.
Right.
So when we're doing a pre-qual and we're setting up for a client, I'll usually send this over, and a lot of times it's a little over the top for a client to digest. But I'm always leaving it off of that it's going to be market. So rates could go up or down, and well beyond that, it's going to be subject to whatever offer you put in. And that's where it goes back to the agent. Say, well, I don't think it's worth talking about rates because we talk about 1% concessions versus 6%, completely different game. But that's where you push it back on me as well, is I will be available, and then for the Ellen's team, I actually send them rates every morning. So if a client asks about a house, they don't have to wait for me to say, hey, what's that payment going to look like? They plug it in here, and then they know what they need in concessions. They'll still go back and have me reach out to the client or whatnot, but they've got the resources and they've got the rates to go do this on the fly, because really it's different on every single offer.
And this is so impactful. The deal I just talked about, my client yesterday said, I'm not paying that. $20,000 is all we're talking. Now this is an investor and I know he'll buy another house, so I'm not like, if this was a single family, like he's not an investor, we'd have a different discussion. Because my discussion to him would be, over 20 grand, you're gonna lose the opportunity to get 4% concessions. Does that really make sense to you? Right, on 400 and some thousand, that's a lot of money. So I'm making up for it with the concessions. Let's not worry about 20 grand. That's what it's gonna sound like if it's just a standard on a rock. But as an investor, I get it, right? Every penny counts to him. But yesterday at 420, it was dead. Rates dropped this morning, and because he's in tune with Matt, literally I get a text this morning, hey, rates are better, go at 420 and see if they take it. If they take it, I'll buy it. Do you see the difference in having just an understanding enough to keep them in tune with the lender and being able to pitch it to the client, there's a lot of benefits to really having a little bit deeper knowledge than most. Because a lot of agents, when you say a 2-1 buy down, they don't even know what you're talking about. You need to at least have a general understanding. This is deep, but I wanted you to see what the client's going to get when they work with the right lender.
This breaks it down a lot easier, especially for writing contracts too. So you can see on this one, it's got just the basics. Monthly savings year 1, monthly savings year 2, regular payment, and then permanent's obviously the same.
Can we all agree that to the average buyer, this is going to be the way? It's his job to dive in, but do you see what I'm saying? To an average buyer, this looks a lot more affordable than the normal payment. And everybody is always in that mindset, well, in 2 years, I'm going to have an increase in this, and my job will be this. So this gets them in. You know, there's no crystal ball, right? I tell my clients that. Like, if I had a crystal ball, I'd be wealthy just from predicting what's coming next. We don't have that. Odds are, I mean, we're putting a lot of people in 2-1s because I do believe from our discussions that we're going to be in a good place to refinance. Even if it's just slightly, and if you've got the money in there sitting in that account, why wouldn't you?
It makes that decision easier too. So let's just say on this side 6.125, this side obviously 6.9, and they'd be happy, like, if today it was a 5.875, when it hits 5.875 here, they've got a loaded free refi in there. So it's like, okay, I think and hope rates will go lower, but if you get out of that buy down, then at least you're hedging that. So this buy down side makes that decision to refi a lot easier, rather than trying to push the market.
Right.
Payments. That always happens. Like, if you, I just, in all my experience, what I've noticed is when a client pays a bunch of points up front, they have a really hard time refinancing because they have to let go of that cash they put in. Big picture, and if you look at the equity, it wouldn't make a difference, but there's something psychological about, I put $10,000 into this rate and I'll never get that back. I just want to wait and see if the market gets a little bit lower. This one's like, hey, we hit that mark, let's do it. Refi it. If it continues to go down, whatever, we'll refi again.
So me personally, I'm pitching these all day long.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Because what I'm saying is, you get the best of both worlds.
Yeah.
We're in a market right now where a lot of people are waiting. They shouldn't be. These are the kind of markets people make good money. But we're in a market where a lot of people are waiting. All those people that are waiting, think of it like a garden hose. As soon as they all let go, it's full pressure. Right now, you're able to get the property you want and name your game. Literally. Sellers are expecting multiple percentages of concessions. You have some strategies you're starting to see again where people are going super low on list price to drive that up. But most properties you're going to be able to come in and get a high percentage and some money off the price. And this is, I'm pitching as a you win both ways. You get a super low payment, because then if I say 5875 and I go, oh, but by the way, that 5875 is 3875 for your first year. 3875. That's what they hear. They don't hear 5875, they hear 3875. Oh, and then 4875, well, even that's not terrible. Rates in the 3s and 4s again sounds good to me. And then they can permanent refinance that. But does either of these make sense without seller concessions? Not really, right? So the biggest thing is, again, this comes back to how you're talking to your client. These are the programs that I'm recommending, and here's the deal. I'm going to go after the seller to pay for those programs. So not only are you saving money and properties have dropped in price, but now I'm going to have the seller get you that rate, and I'm going to have the seller pay for your closing costs, and we're still able to negotiate repairs through the inspection period. It's all in that perception of, wow, it's like the bad infomercials. But wait, there's more. You got to start understanding that people want to know that. People want to know there's massive deals to be had. It's all in how you explain that to them. Because just telling somebody there's great deals to be had doesn't really show them that not only are there aggressive programs out there, oh, and again, by the way, there's money left over that in 6 months or a year or whatever it is can help offset the refinance costs. You don't have to do anything except make your lower payment. There's so many ways to pitch this. Does this kind of make sense when you're looking at the difference between two? This is deep. Like this, when you get to this level and what he just presented before, like he knows this.
Numbers like
yeah, he gets into that, and I go like this. that one over there, Preston's like all in, right? That's why he, on our team, he runs all the numbers, those deep, deep, deep numbers. Because he even starts talking, and I always joke with him, I'm like, how does it feel to have me on, the other half of you? Like, I'm so good at all this, but it's just not me. So if somebody gets that deep, I look, oh. But I'm real good at being able to regurgitate minimal to get the client understanding there's a really good deal to be had. Is there questions on this?
Is a permanent buy down more expensive than a 2-1? Or are they like relatively?
So what you want to do is compare the two. Well, I'm going to make this a little more confusing. You can do, so like let's just say in this case we get 4% or 5%. So now if I go back to my input screen here, you're only using 3.4%. So what you could do, let's see what this would cost, is you can actually do both. And they're completely separate. Now, as far as expensive, that would be relative to what you're getting out of it. Buying down points doesn't go that far, and then if you're going to refinance, it is a waste. Now, it's not always bad. In this case, if you had nowhere else for the rates to go, or nowhere else for that concessions to go, it would probably make sense to put points in there. So let's just do this. So we'll do, you would then put 2 points in here.
And he can run all this for you.
And then now you're doing a 6.125, so absolute worst case scenario, your payment is at a 6.125. Well, then the max payment's $37.29 here, and then your initial payment would be, actually, you know what, this one's gonna be way easier to read. It'd be $3,000. So you just knocked $1,000 off your payment with 4% from the seller.
Do you see how the percentage is huge?
Mm-hmm.
So you said you could split it. So I have a buyer who just bought a new build, and they gave 6% concession.
Yep.
So would it behoove her to split it and do a 2-1 on partial? And
Are you dealing with a new build lender?
yeah, it is.
Okay, so what I would advise my client to do, because he would sit down and do this.
Yeah.
The new build lenders, many times they don't dive in. It's like a bank teller. You
Yeah.
go to the bank, you get your teller, they don't care, right?
Yeah.
They don't care your situation. They're just like, give me your money, or do you want your money?
Yeah.
Similar to builders lenders. So what I would encourage my client to do is have them structure some opportunities for her with a 2-1 buy down with those reserves.
You could use this with lender's numbers.
This is a formula he could give you, but what
Yeah.
I'm saying to my client, if I'm you, I'd say have them structure some potentials with the 2-1 to buy down, with a permanent buy down, and then with a 2-1
And
blended permanent buy down.
Yeah. The
Because
problem is-
6% is a lot.
But the problem is we're still like 8 months out.
But they
So
should
they're
be,
not-
most of those builder lenders are locking now.
Are they?
A lot of them are
Yeah.
changed their tune.
Okay.
Now they're
So
marketing
Locked
us
in
again
like
too.
4.99.
how
Yeah.
much is the client putting down? Do you know?
It's at 400,000. They're putting 80,000 down.
Okay, so they're putting their 20% down. So if they were putting 10% down,
Yeah.
there's another add-on you can do. It's refundable mortgage insurance. So if they have a loan that has mortgage insurance, and the reason I say 10% is because at 5% you can only get 3% concessions. Once you go to 10 though, now you can get 6% concessions, and you can actually buy out the mortgage insurance, so you won't have any mortgage insurance.
Which is a
And-
couple $100 a
Yeah.
month.
Yeah.
It's refundable. So there's actually mortgage insurance carriers that have refundable mortgage insurance, where if they refinance in, I think it's like in 10 payments, I think it drops it to like, they get 80% of that premium back. That gets cut back as a check. This goes back to their original loan balance, so that's where the free refi comes from. But the refundable mortgage insurance, that's what I would have your client check with the builder on, because the builder might not know they have it. I brought this up to in the meeting like 3 days ago, and they didn't even, people didn't even think we were approved to do it. It's something that's just not getting talked about. It's like, oh, it's too expensive. And I ran it with a different carrier's rating as the mortgage insurance company, and it was like, I think it was like $500 more. Like both of them were about, one was like $9,100 and one was $9,500. And so at $9,500, if you refi, you get 80% of that back.
So one of the things that again, I'm always thinking like an agent, he's always thinking like a lender, okay? As for our clients, we should be value add. In other words, why am I gonna pick you over someone like me or someone like Kathleen? Why you? You need to have all the value add on the table right now. Because of all the agents we have, we start to lose some of them, okay? You still need to show why you're the one. You're that market expert. So for me, if I had that situation, I'd say, you know what? I know that Matt's not your lender. Let me just see if Matt has a few minutes to talk to you and give some suggestions. All of a sudden, you look like a hero because the client knows Matt's not gaining anything, but this is what I would tell my clients. These are the relationships that I have built, and this is why working with me is the best. Because you get all of my relationships, and we make sure in the end you're protected the best you possibly can be. Do you see that value add that I bring into it? And trust me, you give enough business to a loyal business to your partner, whether it's lending or title, they're going to do favors for you.
And the new build thing, you send a new build client to me and it's with a new build lender, I'm not going to try and run their credit and snake deal. I know it's going to probably get beat almost every time by the new build lender.
So yeah,
but it's my
sometimes
opportunity
it
to talk
does.
with the agent,
Yeah.
so I can talk her up and also say like, I absolutely do not mind doing this because she takes such good care of me. Plus, there's even ways to pull referrals from that. Like, yeah, I would be more than happy to run this for you because I know you're gonna have.
So I'll actually have you do that. It's my daughter, so I don't need that for this one. But the
right,
next
but
one
just for
definitely.
clients in general, because
Yeah.
like
Yeah, you need to start thinking on that level.
sure.
Because again, our behaviors and our actions shouldn't be based on where we are, they should be based on where we want to be. In other words, my daily calendar when I'm a brand new agent should look like a structure of what I want to be when I'm busy. Meaning, at first it's going to be built with more phone calls, more cold calling, more open houses, but I'm used to now blocking my calendar for productivity of my business. If you make the mistake of not blocking your calendar and you choose to use your free time for just funsy stuff all the time, you're never going to be where you want to be. You have to put that mental block in there and in calendar. I teach classes on this kind of stuff and I coach on my agents on this kind of stuff. Your success will begin with your calendar, 100%. So, does this now?
So as far as the cost of it goes, there's a cost to fund the buy down, and it's literally just taking the seller's funds that's going to be the same as the amount of what it would take to say yeah. There's no extra cost to it, but on here.
Remember, seller's funds, that's what you're pushing.
This will tell you how much that costs. And so the 2-1 buy down cost is 2.1. So it's about, if you're putting 5% down, it's about 2.2% to fund a buy down, just in general. If it's 20% down, about 1.8.
If I get 5.5%, my client's got nothing out of pocket except down payment. Doesn't that sound amazing?
Yeah.
Right? So again, 5% sounds crazy, but look what it equates to in dollars. If you're able to say that, and again, just break it down quickly. Hey, if you're buying a $500,000 house and I can get them to give you 5% to cover all your closing costs and your rate buy down, that's 25 grand we're going to get from them. And we're in a market we can still negotiate price and repairs. Doesn't that sound a lot better? It's how you're letting your clients know there's deals to be had. Yes, there's deals to be had, but you've got to break that to a deeper level. Because you need to show them, A, you have the knowledge and data, and B, you're going to put them in the touch with the right people to show how we can work that for their benefit. Now, I won't mix this in too much, but Preston, we are using, and this is again, surround yourself by people with knowledge, because one of the things we started using here is the leverage of seller financing. So just briefly, give a little 5-second or 1 minute or whatever on that portion and how we're structuring all that.
So you've probably heard of people talking about loan assumptions, VA, FHA. It's very, very difficult to do loan assumptions. They don't have to, the VA is supposed to. FHA doesn't have to, but they've involved lots of delays and difficulties and a lot of deals have fallen through. So when this started, I was like, okay, well, I'll go for loan assumptions. And I got really good at finding houses that would make good loan assumptions, and then we tried to do it, and it was like, oh my god, this is the worst thing ever, because we basically become the lender.
And you don't have funds to pay. Usually there's not a ton of funds to pay
very
everything.
narrow band, right? The loan amount has to be close enough to the sales price that they don't have to come out of pocket a lot of money. Either way. Seller financing is by far easier, and there's a lot of sellers that are willing to do that right now. There are no set rules whatsoever on what it has to be, how long it could be, how much the down payment has to be, what the interest rate could be. The title company is very familiar with seller financing, and they'll do what's called a promissory note. And they'll also set up a servicer, which is who actually accepts payments on loans, and then make sure that principal, interest is paid, HOA, taxes, insurance, all of that, the same things the bank make you do, so you don't get your house foreclosed on. They'll set you up with a servicer, and then that way it protects the seller as well. But there's a lot of people with a lot of equity, even people that don't own their house cash. If maybe they only owe $200,000 or $300,000 on $1 million house, and somebody has $200,000 or $300,000 to put down, they can negotiate from the buyer's perspective and not take any hit to their debt to income. No qualifying, you don't even have to do an appraisal if you don't want to, and you can get a really low interest loan for 3 years, 5 years. I just had somebody offer, a client of mine, one for 10 years. And I was like, okay, I will take that. And then it helps the seller as well, because it's hard to sell a house, right? Because there's more inventory and there's less buyers. And they also get to make actual real money without having a lot of downside. So the seller gets to keep their down payment, they get to keep all of their interest payments, and if they ever stop paying on the house, then they go foreclose on the house while keeping the down payment and the interest money. So while every other asset's going down, cars, houses questionably, not really going down anymore, stock market, whatever it is, even gold hasn't done well. The seller can take all of that equity and make it good interest, like set, secured. If you go and buy a stock, and Tesla goes from, or Facebook goes from 300 to 100, right? There's no underlying asset, like you own a piece of that company, but like Merrill Lynch or, whatever trading company you're using is not gonna give you anything in return. This is a secured asset where if you don't pay the seller back, they take the house just like the bank. So when you explain that to buyers and sellers, like how beneficial it is and how safe it is for sellers to do that, they're willing to do it. And you can be way more attractive than all of your neighbors on the same block if you're a listing agent. And you can get buyers in houses that sometimes couldn't qualify, and that's not what I'm advocating, but it does help. Somebody that being self-employed 6 months ago can then go out and buy a house. There's a lot of people that make 100, 200, 300 a year, but have switched industries or their taxes don't show correctly, and it's fantastic when you can find it.
So again, did you hear what he said, value add? He's coming up with solutions, and that's what we call shifting with the market. So when the market shifts, you have to start thinking all different levels of outside the box. And very good point, if I have a 1099, if I'm 1099, you guys are 1099. You just started, maybe you make really good money, but you don't have 2-year history. That's a good alternative. So again, just understand that when we talk financing, there's different levels of this. So should we get into concessions?
Yes.
Okay. So what do we do? Right here, we're going to eat up all 5%, okay? That's fine. What if we only eat up 3 and we got 5? What? Let's start with what a lender will allow with that concession. Can I take that cash?
No.
Okay. So what does a lender allow with excess concessions? Okay, so again, we already know that a lender will totally allow all your closing costs, your buy downs. We know that. That's basic. Right? But on top of that, what will a lender allow?
So, yeah, there'll be closing costs, prepaids, buy downs, points,
Prepaids. Do you guys know what prepaids are?
your taxes and your insurance.
Okay. HOAs.
Yes, they'll allow you to pay and that's where the property specifics come in. They can pay HOAs, and we've been able to do it where you can pay in advance. So you can pay like a whole year on HOA. That can be included, and then home warranty. Home warranty, you typically get, 2 years up front? Do you get 3?
I know you can get 2. But right now we're seeing the sellers cover a lot of the 1-year warranties, right? But could you do a 2-year add-on?
Add another year. Yep.
Can you get even more creative? Yes.
Yes.
So we're going to take this to a little different level. I'll ask Kelly not to share this video widely. And Matt's going to pretend he didn't hear this. But this is reality, okay? When you're in this industry as long as I am, you make deals happen. And I work with people who make deals happen with me. Because a no has to be, I'm like, is it really no? Or how close are we to a yes? So, look, Kathleen's laughing because she hears this all the time. So here's the deal. Let's say I've got $1,500 left over. Let's just go with a basic number. I've used all my stuff. I've paid for HOA for a year. I've paid for an extra second year warranty, and I've got $1,500 left. And the buyer has said to you, I know that I want to redo the kitchen, or I know I want to do the bathroom. And most of my clients are relying on my contractor, who I use all the time, okay? But whether it's my contractor or theirs that they know and trust, how easy is it for me to go to the seller and say, hey, we didn't use all that credit. We want to use all the credit, which we will if we need to this way, but that $1,500, we're gonna essentially give it back to the seller to pay for this construction or this contractor's bill off the seller's side. Can't go on the buyer's side, but I can roll that $1,500 over back to the seller. Seller cuts XYZ contractor a check directly. Now, and I just did this with someone. My client goes into the house, and of the $3,000, $1,500 is already paid. Isn't that a lot more creative than leaving $1,500? Roof?
So in that scenario, does the work happen before close of escrow, or they have to wait till after?
They wait till after.
Okay.
Yeah, that's why you have to know, it has to be someone you work with and trust.
Yeah.
And
Because
the
on our
lender,
side, we're not gonna see that, because it's gonna be on the seller side. So we get an addendum that says seller concessions to be whatever it is less.
Right.
And then we really don't see anything after that. It shows on the seller side, and I was actually explaining this last night at a dinner with a couple of lenders, is we don't dictate what gets paid on the seller side. They could owe their grandma a note for $10,000. We're not gonna go dig into what's paid on the seller side. It's just an invoice.
Yeah.
It could be work that was done, that the seller had done. He's like, hey, listen, I don't have money right now. This house is selling. We can do the work and get paid through escrow. That has nothing to do with the buyer. So we don't see it. We don't look into it on our side, because if it's anything property specific, we have to dig in. And my underwriter would even tell you, listen, I don't want to see it. Because if I see an inspection report, I have to condition for this stuff. It's not required by the investor to be bought.
so let's take that, what he just said, an addendum. Let's say we had a 5% sellers, the addendum's only gonna read, seller, the concessions will be reduced by $1,500. That is it. Simultaneously, you have to have the seller agree to the title company in writing, or whatever your title company requires, stating that they're authorizing that bill to be paid through escrow. Has to be simultaneously. Don't send that over and not have that other half covered.
Can you explain that one more time?
So simultaneously, before I get that addendum, I'll generate the addendum, but I'll let them know I need you at the same time to get with title, and I'll loop in title with like a 3-way email, myself, the other agent, and title, and I'll say, the seller is agreeing that we're reducing the concessions by $1,500, but the seller is agreeing to pay XYZ contractor in the amount of $1,500 on their side. So then title gets the authorization from them right there, and to the seller, they don't care. And I always tell that to a buyer's or to a seller's agent. What do you care what we do with the money? And whether it's $1,500 coming out of this column or this, it's the same to them. They won't mind. And I presume that they won't mind, and I tell them that, and they're like, yeah, no, that's not a problem at all. Because they're going to go back and tell that to their seller. Hey, it's all the same to you. It's just they need to put one of this way so they can pay their contractor. But roofs, contractors, I've even had cleaners get paid. There's no definition of what a cleaner is. Make sure it doesn't have the same last name as the buyer.
But yeah, that would go a
That's
lot
like,
further than like
so do you see what I'm saying,
an
guys?
extra point.
Be creative. So
Yeah.
I've prepaid, hey, you want your house deep cleaned? Cool. Who's your cleaner?
$1,500 for that.
There it is. And then whatever that client does with that, oops, they didn't get it cleaned, that's on them. I got the check made out to their cleaner. That's the best I knew.
We don't see it on our side. So
Again, is it, no, we're not by definition having them cash the check right in front of us. What I'm saying is, by definition, I'm taking care of my client and getting their house cleaned for them with seller paid funds. There's so many ways you can do this. But my point is, there's a lot of money on the table right now.
Yeah,
A lot
you
of
can
people
go
are going to eat up
completely
all
to
of it right
waste.
here.
Yeah.
A lot of people are going to eat it up right here. A lot of people are going to go, heck yeah, get me down that extra $1,000 a month, I'm all in. If you do a permanent though, the money is used and it's gone. So that would be for somebody who's like, I don't care if it's 6-1, I'm in it for life, and that's a good rate to me.
Yeah.
Not many people are gonna say that. Because, I mean, 5 to 6 is, but nonetheless, if I could probably hedge my bet and guess that I can get a little bit below, even if it's 5.9, I feel better about 5.9 than 6.1. Why wouldn't I go with the best of both worlds?
If it's explained properly.
Correct.
But it's one of those terms where the temporary buy down is, it just sounds gimmicky. The name temporary buy down, and then they're getting 2% less the first year, 1% less the second year. It sounds gimmicky, and it's, if explained properly, it's not, because of the refundable aspect to it.
So, questions on this?
So that, the 2-1 is dollar for dollar though, right?
Yes.
So they take, it's 2%, let's say on a $500,000 house, it's $10,000. Their payments are only $10,000 less in those first 2 years.
Correct.
But that permanent buy down becomes an actual savings after how many years? Approximately?
So that's where there's a break even to it, because at some point you're going to get the majority of the savings. It would be at the point where that 10,000 is eaten up in the savings of the permanent buy down.
Mhm.
Trying to think of this to not make it confusing.
It's like after 3 years or so, 4 years, typically you start actually saving.
And the
money.
lender can do that.
So
Like
what you
at
do
4
is you
years,
take
you
the
break even
savings-
on your long term.
You take the note rate, you take this one against this one, and then that savings, you would take the buy down cost and divide it by the savings, because that would tell you how long it would take.
I know.
to get that.
That's
But it's not a
So here's
typical
what
year
we're-
amount, like, is there a rough estimate, not holding you to it, is
Yeah.
it like
Yeah.
year 5?
Yeah, that's where, in here, I'll pull this out, put that back to where it was. It's usually about 3 years.
3 years.
It's like almost always goes to about 3 years. So if I'm paying 2 points for a rate, or I'm paying 2.2 for a buy down, that's where I put the break even, because I need to see for myself. Right here, 2.9 years. It's usually about 3 years. So that would mean that the permit would make sense after 3 years, not at 3 years, because
Right.
at 3 years is when your buy down stops. But you've still saved that majority up front. So that year, you're still up on savings. It would be after 3 years.
And the reason it's good, even for, when we get, is because the more you hear and understand the potential of so many things that we don't do on a daily, the more you're going to encourage your client. Like, look, I don't know the ins and outs because that's not my niche. I know that my lender has so many programs and can show you when it makes sense to do one program over the other. And again, what you need to get in the habit of is being able to say, like, essentially that's my value, without saying that's my value, but in your own way.
Your value is Matt's on your team.
Well, he's my lender,
Right.
right? But my value is my partnerships that I've built over the years are going to put you in the best position to get the exact perfect loan versus being on the computer and getting whatever the next file up is. And yeah, that looks better up front, but it's not. So the value in my partners are what they're able to get as far as expertise, because I have worked with them for so long that these are people I know and trust, and I know we're going to put my client first.
Yeah.
That you're not just a file to them, you're not just a file number. Matt's going to be there if it's a Saturday and your client starts freaking out. My lender's going to get on the phone with them and calm them down. I've done my part, they do their part, we combo it. But like knowing stuff like this, there's a lot of agents they would just not even understand. You say 2-1 buy down, they're like, huh? Let's reverse that. You've got a listing. Like we've already given you some other food for thought there. But what if you have a listing and you get a pre-qual and the pre-qual is like 6.75 and nothing up front, and you're like, well, I could save a deal here. I've told other agents, hey, I could get you 5.875 right now with my lender, and my seller will pay those costs. Oh, I didn't know that. Now you just put a deal together that you wouldn't have had put together because you have knowledge the other agent doesn't. It works in so many levels when you set yourself apart with knowledge from the rest. And again, surround yourself with people who are who know.
There's something to be said about when something comes up in a transaction and you have the lender call on a Saturday afternoon.
Yeah.
7 o'clock at night on a Wednesday, because
Matter of fact, years ago, that's how Matt and I met. My client was adamant that he was using Matt, and I was like, no, you're not. You're not. I'm not working with, because listen, I'm at the point with my career where you're going to work with me, you do it my way. I don't do it your way. If you want to work with me, it's my rules, my way, period. You don't want that, that's fine. I have other agents on my team you can work with. But it's my rules, my way. And I was adamant with this guy. And I was like, yeah? Oh, you're a lender? Okay, well, it's 8 o'clock on a Friday night. Your lender's going to get on the phone with me? I think so. It wasn't 10 minutes. This one's on the phone with me. Okay. And at the time, I was super impressed with him. But I'm very loyal. And you have to give me a reason not to be loyal to move on. Not just because somebody flashes another perk in front of me. That doesn't work for me. Well, I told him at the time, I said, do me a favor, because if you can't tell my personality, kind of black and white. I like the way you work. I'm happy where I'm at. But I'm going to keep your info. And if ever the opportunity comes up, you'll be my first call. But do not piss me off. Don't call me. Don't market me. Don't do it. Because then I'm just going to throw your info away. Sure enough, he didn't. And my lender screwed up bad. Bad. Like missed a closing bad. Because again, I'm on autopilot for that stuff. I have a transaction manager, but I expect my people to keep me informed if there's a problem. If there's going to be an issue at closing, you better let me know well before so I can take care of what I need to take care of. Anyway, they didn't, and they had made one other mistake. That was enough. I said, that was another funny moment. I think it was a Friday again, and it was like 4 in the afternoon. And I called Matt, and I was like, okay, here's your chance. If you want to do it, though, I need this done right now, and I need this done right now, and it has to be today by 5. I'm on it. And from that day forward, never look back, okay? But that's, again, when I look at, like, what I bring to my clients and the value I bring, it's having the draw to people that are very good at what they do. They already know they have the best real estate agent, the best advisor, right? Real estate advisor. But now, what else do I bring to the table? When I work with Lisa at Navi, there is no question that she's going to make sure everything's handled. And not just send me a prelim, but if there's issues with chain of title, she's going to email or call me, hey, we got issues on chain of title here. I had one, this is back before Linda retired, and Linda Banovic, and she called me and she said, all right, now Linda and I got along real well because Linda and I were the same people. She said, here's the deal. Somehow this seller has a loan that was at some bullshit bank, she said, and they're closed and I can't find it. I took care of it. How'd you do that? I'll to this day never understood what Linda was able to do to get that cloud of title released because it still showed that there was money owed. Linda had to jump through. I think she even went back and found the agent who was representing the file to bring them in to help it clear up. But it was insane, right? A normal escrow officer is not going to do that. I'm just telling you they're not. And you're going to be like, what? There was a cloud on title? Why didn't you tell me? Well, I sent you the email. Come on. This is your forte. Why wouldn't you point that out to me? There's little things that I like too. They all laugh at me, but the day of closing, I want to be the first to know. Why? Because I want my client to be the first to know. And I'm throughout the day, hey, I'm going to update you. So the minute funds are sent, I'm going to let you know. When funds are received, I'm going to let you know. When it goes to recording, I'm going to let you know. We are within this much time of you getting your keys. Matt's always good about that. We had a file, several. I'm high maintenance. But again, communication's key. He knows what he gets with me. He knows I'm not fluffy. He knows I'm going to say what I want. He's going to tell me. And I was like, this has to fund early. It's a mess. It has to fund early. He pre-funded it. We had recordation at like 9, I want to say. That's unheard of. Most of the time I tell my clients, do not do anything until 3 to 5 p.m. is about when you can expect your keys. That one was a little messy. But he pre-funded it. And we did. We closed early, which was insane.
All it takes, it's communication between title too.
Oh yeah.
Because when I get title on there, I'm like, this is great. Because I know exactly what to expect. Like she said, one less thing to worry about.
Your team is used to each other, right? Think of a football team. If you played with random players that you've never met on a team, it's not going to be a flow. But the team that plays every week together is very good at what they do. That's my team. They know who they're dealing with. They each know what the expectation is. So knowing how to find out and carve opportunities in a market and having partners to play out with that. But concessions right now, we're going after everything. My guy right now with the $20,000, it's paying for all of his closing costs. It's making the difference between him wanting to buy more investment properties and not right now. Well, I'll give you one other little nugget. If you have anybody and there's a ton of people out there that you know, because you're like, okay, I'm new, I need to build my book of business. So first start your database, right? Get your database going in a CRM, and ideally you want to get that database above 300 and eventually above 5. But at a bare minimum, get it to 300. But all those people that you know that have these amazing rates, 2 something, 3 something, the potential for them to become a real estate investor is very, very, very strong right now, and build wealth through investing. So how does that look? Well, that's simple. They rent out their house. They're going to make an astronomical number on it because their rate's low and their payment's low. Rents are high and still going higher. We're going to have, to some degree, we can agree that there will be probably a shortage of rental properties available, and that's a whole nother class, because that would be to go down that rabbit hole. But the point is that now I take a buyer who can buy as a owner-op and not an investor and not subject to all the rules and ins and outs. So there's ways to build right now, because a lot of people in those rates are like, why would I sell? Yeah, why would you sell? Why wouldn't you become an investor?
And you only need 5% down for that, for conventional.
Any questions on any of this?
All of it.
And I'll give you guys contract details for that title, so you can fill it in. Chris, thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you. Chris is the marketing rep, so Chris and I years ago, I met him at an event, and it was an event I should never be at because I'll give you all the details
Okay.
too, yeah. You've got a card?
It's a digital card.
I can give you details. I've got it. There's 2 of you. You can write
Sure.
it down. So, but I was at an event that I would never be at, which is a Valentine's event with a bunch of kids, 2 things I can't stand.
Thank you.
And even though I have kids, but my daughter at the time was like, I don't know how old she was, 10 when like,
Yeah, because it was right before the Disneyland trip.
yeah. And I was like, I can't stand when people like hit me up like, hey, can we have coffee? No, thanks, I'll buy my own coffee. Can we buy drinks? No, I'll buy my own drinks. I'm good. Can't stand it. Chris, very, very good at what he does. He says, hey, I'll buy that whole box of chocolates. One condition, you gotta have coffee with me. Now you just brought me into where I can't say no. From there though, literally I had an event that I was doing and I was like, you know what? You seem like you know your stuff with this. He goes, yeah, I could put, he had flyers created. Now, again, you have to remember, I was doing a ton of volume and he knew that. So he wasn't like black and white, well, we don't print certificates for you. He's like, I'll print them and deliver them to you. Where do you want them and when? Could you do it by tomorrow at 4 and meet me here? Absolutely. That was powerful for me because an average standard response would have been, well, we don't print. Okay, cool. He showed up with 500 certificates to me delivered. Not
I
in
paid
my
somebody
office.
else to do all that stuff.
But do you see what I'm saying? The power of partnership.
That's great.
And contractually, I can give you how to write on your contracts because you've got to put specific details to get the people that I have. And the people that I have are better than just anyone at the company. Does that make sense? Any other questions? Because like I said,
Sorry.
yeah, no, you go ahead.
The title company is also great for any kind of advertising that you want to do, or like buyer or seller books. They do a fabulous job. They can give you lists of people who
Yeah,
have
we
owned their
call-
home for a certain
yeah.
amount of time.
So, are there any, because like, you guys have a rare opportunity here to like really ask questions that usually we're so busy and at the end we're like, okay, any questions? We get like 1 or 2. And again, my point is proven right here. Next week is Thanksgiving. Look at the attendance. People are already on neutral. Don't put your business on neutral. We build our goals for our team in November because I want them to be in the action habits already right now. Any questions? No? You seem like you're numbers driven. You've got 2 numbers nerds here.
No. So this is a second career. So I retired from my first one, so that's why I'm getting involved. And everything you're saying is great. Like I would love to get your information as well and have a conversation with you.
Absolutely.
You guys aren't hiring on your team, are you?
We're always looking for that.
Yeah.
What
Absolutely.
did you retire from?
I was a school principal for 30 years.
You would be fabulous.
So, yeah, and you know what? Just knowing that Teachers make good
academics
agents.
make very
Yeah.
good agents,
Yeah.
because the organization, the calendars, the,
Oh, you should see my notes
And
system
the
and what
care.
I have, like, and so hearing the numbers, I'm like, yeah, please.
That's the care that I've always found with Kathleen as a
I
teacher.
used to be an administrator
Yeah.
for a school in South Phoenix.
Yeah, me too.
So,
Which one?
Well, I was in Cartwright for a while and then I'm in Deer Valley, but I opened up a special needs school that I retired from, so
So
the
see-
care is there.
Oh, okay, yeah.
the level
So-
of care that you guys bring to the
Yeah.
table is something that I can't teach someone.
Yeah.
And that, I believe our team excels. I mean, we do numbers. We did 100 million last year with like 10 agents. It's unheard of volume. There's a reason like, oh, Ellen's team and we want you guys to speak and all that.
Yeah.
And again, we've got a perfect blend. Our partners and like Preston being that number side, there's certain people I'm like, Preston, you're training this person, that is not me. And there's other, I'm like, Preston, you're not touching that training, that is all me.
Yeah.
Because that's why we work real well. About a year ago, in our meetings, when we do our meetings, we go over data because I am huge on believing that you have got to have data. Will you let her know she can cut that? I don't even know how she does it. But every meeting, I would go over the basic numbers and stuff like that, and we talk about it.
No, she's in.
And I'm like, why am I doing this?